Hey, out there. You know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia, and we are presenting you a special segment of Artist Apex. As you can see, we're in our virtual studio today. Particularly with this segment of Artist Apex, we're going to have concentration on the ascension towards fulfilling your artistry. And we have a special guest. As you can see on the screen, you're familiar with him. He's been on the show before. He's a voice actor, a live event sports announcer, and he operates through his business, Nelson Voices LLC. Give it up for Mr. Matt Nelson. Matt, how you doing today?
Cue the fake audience in the background. I'm doing well, Zeus. Thanks for having me on board.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Definitely somebody of your background with your unique talent. Uh, it's a beautiful thing today that we get the opportunity to discuss and get a little bit more in depth. Our last segment together, you kind of just touch bases on a few things, but today we get the opportunity to get more understanding about what you do, particularly in the voice acting field and with your live events announcing as well. So for you guys out there, for your viewers, we kind of just want to discuss with Matt and kind of go through this journey as he's reaching toward the precipice of his goals and how he demonstrates his ambition from the beginning, from creating the foundation that is his business and his art form, to developing the process of becoming a voice actor and live event sports announcer, to expanding his artistry to other ventures, and what is needed to carry on with his journey. So, for those who are aspiring to get into this realm in this field of in this particular art form, hopefully this can be beneficial for you guys. As we have the expert here, Mr. Matt Nelson, is going to break some things down, and we're going to break it down into different concepts, into different parts, so we can truly get the full grasp of what you do, Matt. So why don't we start with part one, constructing the foundation to becoming a voice artist? What's basically the gist as far as if somebody wants to get into this art form, what would be needed on their part to kind of get things started?
Well, first of all, they've got to have the interest. And it's a lot more than just having the talent to come up with all these creative character style voices. What I would suggest people do is, first off, if you're on Facebook, that's a start. There are several, and I mean several, Facebook pages dedicated to voice actors made by voice actors. Introduce yourself, get a sense of the vibe, get a sense of the people's opinions, and then if you're interested, if you want to continue the path, do some research on the industry. Figure out how much money voice actors make, especially in the first few years or so, what it takes to get started. And next step would be find a reputable voiceover coach, someone who's got at least 10 years of experience as a voice actor. They don't have to be full time for 10 years, but I would definitely suggest finding someone that you can feel the good vibes. Um, from there, there's going to be some money involved. There's definitely going to be a big time cost. Um, a lot of people don't realize that becoming a voice actor requires an investment. Now, if you don't want to spend $10,000 right away, I get it. No one wants to spend $10,000 on coaching. There, of course, also comes the equipment from headphones, a laptop if you don't have one for work purposes, your DAW, which is what you use for editing audio, microphone, headset. There's a lot of things that go into effect. It's also a process. It takes time for things to come to fruition before you can actually start finding the work and building those relationships. So I know there's a lot of information in there, but it's definitely helpful and useful, especially if you're not really sure how to get into the industry itself.
And I think you made some good points there. I hope you guys are tuned in on that. I love the fact that you're advocating for research. You know, at the end of the day, it's good to go ahead and use and talk to other people, especially within that field, to get a little bit of insider knowledge, as we're doing today, discussing this. But at the end of the day, to do what's in the best interest for you and for your art form, your artistry, and for your business, it's always about getting in-depth research into the field and understanding your market as well. Maybe demographically, there may not be a great market for exactly what you're trying to get into. So that's where that research comes into play, to just understand exactly if you're going to provide a service for people, to know that it's a service that they need and that they desire for. Because sometimes that could be kind of a pitfall for people. They end up going headfirst into a venture and not really getting all the ins and outs, to understanding that, especially demographically where they're at, it's not really a big market for exactly what you got going on. So you might have to fine tune it and maybe move into a different direction. So I'm glad you brought that up about the research.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm guilty of what you just mentioned. I may not have done as much research as I would have liked to, but it's also good to learn from other folks in the industry, especially those who have been doing it 10, 20, 30, even 40 years in the industry. You never know what you're going to learn until you learn it. And if you ask questions, that's an even better way to even broaden your knowledge a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, you got to put yourself out there, guys. You don't, obviously, if you're going through a situation, if you don't have uh, if you're not in a situation where you have a team and it's all on you, as far as, developing your artistry, developing your business, you definitely need to put yourself out there enough so that you can kind of bounce ideas off of people and really get an understanding of things. Don't be shy, basically, and just feel like, okay, I'm just going to read a few things, maybe look some things up online, maybe check out a couple YouTube videos, and then that's all the insight that you need. Everything that's in your disposal, you should utilize it to the best of your ability, and that includes interacting with people and getting that understanding. So I'm glad you brought that up, man. So for part two, we're kind of going to get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, when we're going to be discussing how to develop a process to becoming an effective voice artist. So, Matt, can you provide for the viewers just a basic outline of how you're developing your craft and how you get more, like, transitioning it into a business?
I mean, becoming an effective voice actor, it's kind of like what I said earlier. It's not just about the talent; it's about how much work you put into it and the amount of investment that you're willing to put in as well, in order to get the appropriate training, the appropriate gear, the appropriate knowledge as well. It requires a lot of patience, and I mean this literally. I've had a lot. I've contacted a bunch of people to have one-to-ones with them, whether they're in the industry providing voiceover services to their clients, or if they're maybe not in the industry necessarily, but they're still a resource that I can go to for things, or heck, if they know someone who works with voice actors. Um, it requires a ton of patience. um, and then obviously figuring out, like what you said earlier, what works best for you, what genres best suit your needs, what genres best suit your interests. Um, I've had a lot of people, well, not a lot, but I've had some people ask me, have you ever thought about character work or anime or audiobooks or video games? I mean, I know this may sound controversial, but just because I can speak or like imitate a certain character, for example. I'm very good with like Eric Cartman from South Park and Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants. Just because I can imitate those characters doesn't necessarily mean I want to venture into those genres. So it's really about selecting what works for you, what may be something that you don't want to do. You can try it. I'm not saying don't go after it, but just go through the process, figure out, okay, what do I want to do? What do I don't want to do? What's a green flag? What's a red flag? Figure out those things and let the process do its thing. As long as you put in the work, as long as you send out the emails, make the follow ups, heck, send clients some previous work that you've done. If you have an updated demo reel, those are all great ways to hone your craft and try different types of projects, especially if the clients have very unique instructions that maybe you've never even tried before. I've learned a bunch of things. I like this one voice actor that I follow very closely on Instagram. Her and I mean, we met over social media, ironically, several months ago. Um, she had a client that wanted her to memorize a script. I don't know if that's something I'm going to ever have to get into down the road, but
Wow.
it's definitely it's a challenge. It's a challenge, not actually looking at the copy as you're, doing the actual thing in studio. So it takes a lot. I know it's not necessarily a straightforward answer, but becoming an effective voice actor requires a lot of figuring out and understanding what's going to work best for you, maybe not just in the short term, but also in the long.
Another valid point that you make. So for you guys, it's all about being comfortable, right, with what you're doing. Again, you don't want to bite more than you can chew. Matt is not advocating that if you do desire to be a voice actor, that you could go into different genres and try it out. There's nothing wrong with trying new things. But in the end, if you want to be effective for the long term, that's the part that I like that you mentioned, Matt, for the long term, so that you can prosper within your artistry and with your business, is to find your niche, what you're really good at, maybe hone in on them skills where you get to the point where you're really sure of yourself, and then maybe you can advance further into other things as well. I think that I know with me, just as a side point, with Olympian Multimedia, I'm better now. Everything, the business is going smooth, and I got an understanding of the different aspects of it. But I'm definitely guilty of biting more than I could chew, so to speak. When I got involved with multimedia, dealing with all these different facets, I didn't really have a total understanding of things, guys. Like, I'm looking at photography, for example. How hard can it be? You kind of just angle the camera a certain way, you put it on the tripod a certain way, you click the button, there you go. You know, when it comes to videos, how hard can it be, especially from the editing process? Music, there's so many different elements that you can learn with that. So for me to go into that kind of venture and to be naive enough to believe that, oh, it's not that hard. Just do a couple things here, a couple things there, and it'll just be fine. And you start realizing, like, man, this is something that you're going to have to take time to really fine tune and get a really good understanding about for the long term, for the business to be successful. So I appreciate you making that point, Matt, about the long term. Sometimes we're so have this tunnel vision as far as what is going on in front of us now, and we want everything to go swimmingly with that. But you have to set yourself up for the long run to ensure that you'll be successful, guys. So for you guys out there, just keep that in mind. So you touch base a little bit, Matt, when it comes to how you transition your artistry into a business. So transitioning your artistry to a fruitful enterprise. Let's continue on with that whole theme of long term. For a person who's getting into voice work and now wants to make this a business, what are some long term goals an individual should have regarding making the voice work into a business?
First of all, let me just say, I'm not the kind of person that actually says what their goals and dreams are out loud. I've got it written down in multiple places throughout my apartment and here on my laptop. But what I will say, and I'm being honest, is that I'm still figuring that part out.
Appreciate the honesty. Appreciate it.
I think one of the things that a lot of voice actors may not necessarily realize is from a money standpoint, you want to look for financial freedom. You don't want to ultimately have to keep on relying on yourself to figure out, okay, how am I going to pay rent every month, especially if the work is not coming in? How am I going to get better to make it out of this fiscal period or quarter or what have you? Um, whether it involves, getting some training, getting some new demos, maybe learning about more effective ways to make your website stand out a little bit more, whether it's through SEO, maybe your social media needs a fine tune up. There are always many different avenues in order to make your voiceover career what it needs to be. And, going back to what I said earlier, you may not necessarily know what it is now, but you may have a better idea what it looks like down the line. So there's so many different avenues to making it an enterprise that will make sense for you.
Point as well. Doing things that make sense to you. I like that. Because I think a lot of times too, just as a bit of advice for you viewers out there, sometimes we might get into a situation where we're a little bit over reliant on the information that we're getting, whether we're talking to different people and whatnot. And then you kind of see how they're doing things. And it's like, hey, I just want to go ahead and replicate that since they have this measure of success. And sometimes it doesn't always bode well for you to go in that direction. Just because it's working for them doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. You might be in the same realm or the same field, but they might be doing things a little bit differently compared to their skill set. Maybe they're a little bit more advanced than you, like you were mentioning earlier about talking to people who's actually been in the business for years. That type of knowledge that you could get from them is invaluable. But also, too, understand that they found their niche, they found their way of doing things. It may not necessarily be the best interest for you to follow. It's not to say you can't take tips and techniques here and there, but it's all about finding your way so that you could be successful in the long run. And I love the fact that you brought up about the cost. Definitely keep that in mind, guys, when it comes to costs and trying to put a business together. You got operational expenses versus your working capital. Obviously, you're going to offset some of that money toward funding for different things that you're trying to do. It takes money to make money. So definitely keep that in mind, especially with what you're trying to do. Definitely the way the economy is right now, cost is definitely going up on pretty much everything. So you definitely don't want to put yourself in a hole early on and kind of lose traction, so to speak, as you're trying to put your business together. And
Don't
trying
get
to
me started on eggs.
Yeah, I mean, I know all about it too, man. It's a headache, to just go over each month. You go over your budget, you're making sure everything's being paid, but at the same time, you're looking like, man, you're always thinking about expansion. You're thinking about, man, I might have to upgrade this piece of equipment, this, that, and the third. Yeah, it could definitely be overwhelming. But if you got a plan in play, especially a budget, and you work in the confines of your budget, you should be fine over time, as long as you don't go outside your means. If that makes any sense. So, Matt, you touch base a little bit, just a snippet, on as we go to part 4 about the tools needed to explore your endeavors. So, we kind of want to get a little bit of insight from you as far as your studio setup, and for someone who's want to get into this line of work, what are some pieces of equipment that they're going to need?
Yeah, so I touched on it earlier, but I'm more than happy to dive into it again. So for yours truly, I bought a $500 studio. Literally, just like Googled something on Amazon, and boom, there it was. I also live in a very small apartment, 1 bedroom, storage closet's taken up, it's full. So I decided, okay, let me put it in between the TV and the living room window. Not ideal, but got to make lemonade out of lemons, right? Um, So as far as the inside, um, definitely need a recording software. We call it a DAW. Um, there's Audacity, Adobe Audition. I know some people have other software they like to use, like Pro Tools. List goes on and on. I prefer Audacity. It's free. It's an easy download. You can get it on Windows or Mac, whatever you have. Um, Next thing you want to make sure you got to have a good mic setup. I have an AKG P220. I believe I got that right. I got that as part of a bundle. Can't think of the website off the top of my head. Oh, Sweetwater. Sweetwater is a great place to get your audio gear, especially if you're not really certain how much you want to spend. Great deals, great prices, and all that stuff. I got that along with an audio interface and some XLR cables that came as part of a package deal, so it worked out pretty well. Um, I have a small table that I purchased on Target, cost about 70 to 80 bucks. So I have the mic boom arm, get one at Guitar Center, great price, about 100 bucks for mine. Um, that's where I attach the microphone so I can do my job. I also stand, I don't sit. You also want to determine if you want to have an office chair or if you're better off standing up straight. My voiceover coach, one of the first ones I had, told me that it's better to do the work when you're actually standing up. You get to move around. You get to act more. You're not restricted when you're sitting down. Uh, so, not saying sitting down is a bad thing, but you may want to figure out what would work better for you when it comes to acting and all that jazz. Um, and of course, placement of all the equipment is definitely going to make a big time difference, whether you're starting out, whether you're a few years down the road, heck, if you're 10 or 20 years into your voiceover career. Um, like I said, I don't have a ton of space to work, but I make do with what I have. Um, so as far as the total costs go, I would say I spent somewhere between $1,500 to $2,000 on all the stuff I just mentioned combined. So again, not terrible. Some people want to spend less. Go to Lowe's or Home Depot, buy some PVC pipeline, get some soundproof blankets. That may work for you, especially if you're just starting out. But those are some of the basics. Of course, the cost will obviously depend on what you're willing to spend. But if you speak with someone who has a pretty good idea of what they spent, especially early on in their career, you're going to be just fine.
Interesting, interesting. I mean, we were just talking about that too, about cost. Definitely keep that in mind. I definitely know about when it comes to recording equipment, music equipment, it gets very costly. So I definitely know about that. Quick question though, when it comes to the mics, obviously the mic is probably one of the most important tools that you're going to need within your line of work. Is it good for someone to use like a pop filter onto the mic?
Oof, that's a great question. I actually bought that to start, but over time I learned it's not mandatory. You can use it. I'm not saying not to buy a pop filter, but it may not be necessary. Again, it all depends on whether or not it works well for your studio setup. If you're known for spitting out of your mouth, then yes, it may come in handy, but it's optional. It's optional to answer your question.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you got some issues, guys, I guess that would be the way to go. You might want to put that pop filter on there. Another quick question about the mics. Is it better to get a mic that you would essentially plug up into an audio interface, like some type of compressed mic? Or could one use like a more condensed mic that is USB compatible, where you could just plug it into the computer? Would that make a difference as far as what you're doing,
I
or
would go,
is it
I would go with the prior. I would go with the
okay?
prior. The audio quality is going to sound so much better. Um,
Okay.
a lot of people tend to make that mistake. I'm guilty. guilty of that several years ago. I used to have a USB microphone that I just plugged in the side of my laptop and, record pro bono or very low cost, low budget gigs. I didn't get a ton of those before I decided to make voiceover a little bit more, make it a little more serious for myself. Um, you want to make that mistake? I'm not saying not to, but if you want to make this a business and a career, get the audio interface, get a microphone that, plugs directly into it. Your audio quality is going to sound so much better. I guarantee it. I'm not just saying that, I mean it.
We appreciate the insight. So for you guys out there that's aspiring to get into this line of work and this artistry, just keep that in mind. You're always trying to look for top quality, especially when you're dealing with customers. You don't want to take shortcuts here, guys, because you're not going to be in business very long if you decide to just take some shortcuts just to kind of make it easier for you. Sometimes you have to go that extra mile to ensure that you're putting out the best product. So, Matt, we're at part 5, our final part. And it's about, we're going to be discussing specific measures required in order to continue to maintain your level of success. So, again, that's a big theme that we've been talking about with this discussion, is about long-term finding ways for you to be successful. So what are some things for individuals to think about being in this line of work to ensure that long-term they could be successful? Like, what are some things they should keep in mind?
To always send emails, especially whether it's to a client that you're looking to approach to build a relationship and potentially, have some work lined up. If you already have an established client, just make sure you keep yourself top of mind when it comes to them. One thing I just learned recently from a voice actor, Paul Schmidt, who is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to helping voice actors build their business in an effective way. You'll want to send emails to clients that maybe you haven't heard from, or maybe they haven't become a client yet. You want to send those emails every 3 months. Being one of the first emails to pop up in their email folder. Don't go to spam. Just making sure you always want to keep them notified that, hey, I exist. If you need me, I'm here. That's not
That's a
exactly
good
what
point.
in the emails,
Mm,
but find creative ways to make yourself available and make yourself known so that they can always think about you, especially if a project comes to mind and they need a voice actor.
that's a good point. I like that you brought that up as far as um, keeping that correspondence with people. So even if you haven't touched base with them in a while, as far as like business is concerned, you're not working on any kind of projects, just the fact that you're actually out there making it known to them, like, hey, um, I'm still here. Whenever you need some type of assistance or help with a certain project, sometimes it's not even beneficial for you to be even pushy either. Some people tend to do that. It's kind of like you're trying to push your business on the people. Sometimes it means a lot to people to be like, hey, look, if you just need a quick tip, some quick insight on something, I'm here for you. And a lot of times just opening up that dialogue might lead to business. That helped me out tremendously, just talking with different people and going to different venues and different events. Of course, I want people to be, interact with my business and be a part of the business and generate business, working on different projects, so forth and so on. But sometimes it means a lot, just enough that you can sit there and just have a conversation with somebody and not always trying to push an agenda on people. That's just great public relations, just to show like you actually care about the person and not just trying to get to their wow. So just keep that in mind as well for you guys who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. You're definitely going to have to deal with people, and people are different, and they may not always come through when you want them to come through. especially when you're trying to, like, keep your business along. But if you put yourself in a situation where, like, you're always available to them, no matter what the situation is or what it calls for, I think that bodes well for you in the long term as far as making your business successful. So, Matt, I definitely appreciate you coming on board today with this segment. You offer a lot of great knowledge as far as how to go about the process, how to transition it into a business, the type of tools, equipment that you're going to need. I hope for your viewers out there, you wrote down some notes, you took in a lot of what Matt says. Real quick, Matt, can you provide for the viewers if they want to get touch base with you, your contact information?
Yeah, so my website is Nelson, like Nelson Mandela, and the word voices.com. If you want to contact me directly, shoot me a text, 732-484-0808. I would prefer email, and you can do that by typing in Matt, M-A-T-T, at nelsonvoices.com.
All right. And just real quick, if an individual out there wants to take part with your services, specifically what kind of services you provide?
So I can voice anything from commercial work. I do long form and short form narration. So if that's something like corporate, medical, explainer videos, e-learning, I can also do your voicemail recordings. We call that IVR and message on hold. Zeus obviously knows me from being a sports announcer. So if you got a live event coming up, you're looking for someone to maybe MC, do some announcing so that, I don't actually get seen in person. I can also be available for that as well.
Awesome. So you guys, you got the information. Definitely check out Matt if you need any type of voice work. He's great. This guy is going to give you 100% due diligence. He's very good at his craft. Matt, again, I appreciate you being on the show. Much blessings to you and your business as you continue to ascend on your journey, your artist apex, your personal apex. Again, you know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia, providing you another segment of Artist Apex. And the only thing left to say is check you later. See y'all.